Hi everyone, today we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 Senate map. Obviously 30 Republicans already in the bag, 35 Democrats in the bag. So yeah, we're just going to be taking a look and going through each of these states. So Oregon, obviously safe to go to the Democrats. New Mexico with Ben Ray Lujan. Illinois, Dick Durbin. Massachusetts with Ed Markey. Rhode Island with Jack Reed. New Jersey with Cory Booker. Delaware with Chris Coons, I believe. In Delaware, New Hampshire, Jeanne Shaheen is now safe to move into the Democratic column this time round. So that gives the Democrats up to 43 seats, and Minnesota as well. There's an incumbent Democrat there, standard issue, moderate Democratic there, who's going to get reelected. In terms of the Republicans, obviously Idaho, safe for the Republicans, with Jim Risch, Cynthia Loomis. This is an open seat, but obviously Wyoming going to go towards the Republicans. South Dakota, Nebraska with Ben Sasse. Oklahoma also moving towards the Republicans. Arkansas, there's no Democratic opponent there, so Tom Cotton going to easily win re-election. Louisiana moves to the Republicans. Mississippi likely to go to the Republicans. Alabama, we're looking at this one being a leaning to move as a Republican pickup at this point. The state of Tennessee, the state of Kentucky, the state of West Virginia, all safe for the Republicans. So that's 42 seats for the GOP and Mitch McConnell, 44 for the Democrats. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 competitive races this time around, an expanding map. So let's go ahead and let's start with the likely Republican states. Let's go to the likely Republican states. Right now we see Mississippi obviously likely to go to the Republicans at this point. Alabama we're just going to take out just for a second. Kansas right now also could be competitive at this point. So right now I believe Mississippi is probably the only likely Republican state. Let's move on to the likely Democratic states now. So Colorado, incumbent Republican Senator Cory Gardner, not looking too good against John Hickenlooper. Looks like Hickenlooper is going to take that one. In Colorado, likely to move to the Democrats. Virginia is safe, by the way. Virginia is safe to go to the Republicans. At this stage, it's looking really good for incumbent Democratic Senator Mark Warner. And Michigan looks like it's going to continue to be in the Democratic column with incumbent Gary Peters winning re-election there. Moving on to the leaning Republican states, and there's quite a few of these leaning Republican states right now. The state of Alabama, right now we're going to move towards the leaning Republican states. The state of South Carolina, also leaning Republican. Both of these are kind of similar races, both in the Deep South. They both have Democrats running. Alabama, it's an incumbent Democratic senator. But both of these senators definitely have some negatives, and that could force them both out. However, I would definitely say South Carolina definitely is probably going to move towards the Democrats quicker than Alabama. So I guess Alabama is more Republican than South Carolina at this point. Jamie Harrison, really strong Democratic challenger going up against Lindsey Graham, but I think he's going to come up just short there in that state. Moving on to the next state, the state of Texas. We see this one, oops, if it's going to let me click on it. There we go. So the state of Texas, leaning towards the Republican. John Cornyn looking pretty solid against Democratic challenger MJ Hagar. So 45 Republicans, 47 Democrats. Other leaning Republican states at this point in time. We have the state of Montana. Even though Democrats have a strong challenger, it looks like it's sticking with incumbent Republican Senator, incumbent Republican Senator, Steve Daines. State of Alaska, obviously they have a good Democrat there running, But Alaska is still Alaska, so it's looking like it's going to stay in the Republican column. So that's 47 Republicans, 47 Democrats. Where can Democrats, so Republicans have pretty much caught all the way up. And it's just worth mentioning all of these kind of states. Oh, by the way, Kansas should be leaning Republican there. Montana, Alaska, Kansas, Texas, Alabama, South Carolina. All these states have somewhere around 75% to 85%. So if you actually do the probability on them, I would not be surprised at all if South Carolina or Alabama or Texas or Kansas or Montana or Alaska, I wouldn't be surprised if one or two of these states actually bucked the trend and it actually flips towards the Democrats as a surprise pickup. Maybe, Jamie Harrison surprised us in South Carolina, or maybe Democratic turnout is really good in Texas, or maybe Steve Bullock can pull it out in Montana, or maybe, there's a surprise up in Alaska, not much polling in Alaska, so it's really hard to poll, so maybe you have a surprise there. So I wouldn't be surprised just because of probability. It's probable that Democrats will pick up one of these seats, these leaning Republican seats. That's just how probability works. So 47 Democrats. Let's go ahead now and fill in some leaning Democratic states. So the state of Arizona, right now, Mark Kelly leading Martha McSally. She has got a few good polls, but mostly it seems like Mark Kelly is going to take that one. North Carolina, Cal Cunningham, looks like he's going to pull it out. Same thing with Sarah Gideon in the state of Maine. So that's 50 Democrats with those seats. The Democrats are still looking pretty solid in terms of the Senate. Maybe it's gone down slightly. Their probabilities have gone down slightly in the past week or so, but they're still favored to take the Senate. Maybe 75% chance that they're going to take the Senate, 80%. So obviously not a sure thing, but I'd say they're definitely favored to take the Senate. The state of Iowa, right now, we're going to move this into the leaning, Democratic column, barely moving towards the Democrats. And here's the big wild card, the Georgia races. So we obviously have the Jon Ossoff, David Perdue race, and we've also got the Raphael Warnock, Doug Collins, Kelly Loeffler race. So the Georgia Maine, this is the Georgia Maine, and then this is the Georgia Special. So the Georgia Maine, right now, David Perdue, Jon Ossoff, and then obviously I feel like Jon Ossoff would definitely have the best chance he could win if he gets over 50% on election day. Because if he falls just short, even if he leads David Perdue like 49-47, they both go into a runoff. And in that runoff, there's a few factors working against Jon Ossoff. Firstly, there's no Libertarian candidate. Right now, there's a Libertarian candidate probably siphoning away some votes from David Perdue, and secondly, he doesn't have that election day turnout. And if you're just doing like a Georgia special election, I can't imagine all that many people are going to turn out other than the people who always vote. Those people tend to lean Republican. So he's got his best chance if he just wraps it all up on election day. He could still win in the runoff, but I think it would be easier for him to wrap it up on election day. Right now, I see this one being really close. I think it probably does go to a runoff, and in that runoff, we could definitely see David Perdue. But here's the thing: there's so many possibilities with these Georgia races. So David Perdue, I'd say would tilt Republican, because I'd say there's a strong 40% chance that Jon Ossoff can actually win on election day. So that's pretty good odds. In the Georgia special election, this one's really interesting. I think Raphael Warnock probably again has his best chance if he wins on election day outright. If he can just get over 50%, that would definitely be easier if Matt Lieberman gets out of the race, and I believe there's one more Democrat on the race. Ed Tarver, I think, gets out of the race. That would probably mean that they could coalesce the Democratic vote, and you could even have a situation where Warnock and Jon Ossoff both get over 50% plus one on election day, and then in that case Democrats would just have these 2 seats in the bag, 53 Democrats in the Senate. However, right now, again, with Georgia, I would say most likely is that Warnock goes to the runoff and Doug Collins goes to the runoff, and there you would definitely give favorite to Doug Collins. But definitely Warnock has a chance to wrap it up on election day. We're going to be tilting that one towards the Republicans as well. So right now, 51 Democrats, 49 Republicans, but I would not be surprised at all if it was 52 Democrats. Not surprised at all in the slightest if that took place, because if you see on this map, a lot of the Democratic seats are generally more certain. A lot of the Republican seats are still really close, that favor the Republicans a bit. So I would not be surprised at all if Democrats get 52, 53. Not surprised at all. I'd be more surprised if the Democrats could only get to 50. That would be kind of surprising to me, if I'm being honest, and could be a bad night for the Democrats. So that's it for today's video, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Good night.